And our leaders are low-life scum that screw little girls so the Jews can screw America. That's what's happening in this country. I just said it. That's what's going on in this country. And our FBI is corrupt. The Supreme Court is corrupt. The Justice Department is corrupt. The news media is corrupt. The whole country is corrupt because we've walked away from Almighty God and we've allowed Kabbalah practicing Jews to defile the nation. Put that video out. Go ahead and clip this video and send it out. I dare you. You won't do it because you're scared that the truth may get out to the American people. I'm had it up to here with the corruption in this country. Little children being raped for the benefit of Israel. That's all it's about, Doc. Little American children being raped for the benefit of Israel. American politicians raping little American girls to be videotaped by Israeli Mossad so that Israel can blackmail American politicians. That's the state of America today. God ought to destroy this country for what we've become.
Israel is eager to move World War III beyond Gaza. They're pulling the troops back from Gaza because they're going to send their troops to Lebanon and Syria. And the eventual fight is Iran. That's the final stop. That's the big one. But they're going to go into Lebanon. They're going to go into Gaza, into Syria. They're going to expand. They're hitting other countries surrounding Israel. They're killing people. That was an Israeli Mossad bomb attack today in Iran. They killed 103 people at the memorial ceremony of General Soleimani. That was Mossad. They want to anger the Iranians. They want to anger Hezbollah in Lebanon. They want to provoke them, drive them to the point that they come out and fight. Have you seen any of these countries attacking Israel? No, it's Israel attacking them. They want them to come out and fight. Now, you know why? Because if they can get that big war going, the United States of America will come in and American men will die for Israel. That's what it's all about. They're setting the stage so that America will be pulled into World War III to fight for Israel. Be prepared. Be prepared. I'm telling you, folks, there's a false flag coming really soon. It's going to be big. It's going to be horrific. It's going to shock the world. It will be bigger than 9/11. Do you remember what Netanyahu said the day after 9/11 on 9/12? He said 9/11 is good for Israel.
The Israeli newspaper Ma'ariv has reported Israel's former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has publicly said the September 11th attacks have been good for Israel. Netanyahu said, quote, "We're benefiting from one thing, and that is the attack on the Twin Towers and Pentagon and the American struggle in Iraq." End quote. Netanyahu then reportedly said these events, quote, swung American public opinion in our favor.
Why was it good for Israel? Because it let America, the American people, swallowed the propaganda, and we went into 20 years of war, and we're still in war. They're attempting now to bring the United States of America into a full World War III confrontation with the Arab world and the Persians. Here's the New York Times. Pressure mounts as Israel combs through Gaza hospital for Hamas's presence. They're looking under hospital beds. They're opening closet doors.
Right.
Where are these terrorists? Where are their weapons of mass destruction? They're in here somewhere, maybe down at the nursery. Maybe those little terrorist babies are hiding the weapons. They can't find it. You know why? Because it was a hospital.
Yes.
It was a hospital. It wasn't a weapons depot. It wasn't an armory. It was a hospital. So Bibi Netanyahu today changed the narrative.
Yes.
Now it was, well, we never thought that there was a massive headquarters there. We believe that the hostages were there. That's the reason that we surrounded the hospital. We suspected that the hostages were there. Well, they found the body of one hostage. Unfortunately, a woman who died. But did the Hamas men kill her, or did she die from lack of food and water and medical care at the hospital? Did the Palestinians take her to the hospital because she needed medical care and she died there because the Jews had cut off all the water and electricity and food to the hospital? But that's their propaganda today. We've got one corpse. There's got to be more corpses of the hostages here. They just continue with their propaganda. All they care about are today's headlines because they count on you forgetting tomorrow what they lied about today.
Hey, you want to know? Here's an easy way to know if you are controlled. Is there somebody or something that you're not allowed to criticize?
That's right.
Simple as that. If you lived in Nazi Germany, you couldn't criticize the Nazi Party. If you lived in the Soviet Union, you couldn't criticize the Communist Party of Russia. If you live in China right now, you can't criticize the Chinese Communist Party. If you live in North Korea, you can't criticize Kim Jong-un. If you live in Cuba, you can't criticize the Cuban Communist Party. If you live in America, who can't you criticize?
Ooh.
Who can't you criticize in America?
The Jewish lobby.
Yes.
On both sides.
Right.
That's right. That tells you who controls the country. You're not. The fact that we're having this discussion and we're on the edge, all right? Everybody knows here, this is the edge.
Oh, yeah.
Why are we on the edge? Because we're touching the third rail. We're breaking the taboo. You're not allowed to discuss the power of the Israeli lobby in America. That's proof right there. They control America. That's who's controlling free speech in this country. That's who's eliminating the ability to criticize Planned Parenthood. Because who owns Planned Parenthood? Who owns the pornography industry? Let's go down the list. See, they're going to crush anybody who questions their power.
Right.
And they have that power. It's on both sides, as you said. Democrats and Republicans, they all bow down to.
This is True News, the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help us God. I'm Rick Wiles. Last week, we told you about Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky's odd comment that his country would become Big Israel. We continued researching the topic and found a lot of fascinating information to share with you about a movement to declare Kiev the new Jerusalem. Now, if the main proponent of the scheme was not a billionaire, we would not pay much attention to it. The deeper we dug, the more we found. Doc Burkhart is back and ready to jump into this fascinating topic. Doc, good to have you back.
Good to be back, and I just want to say thank you to all the messages from viewers and listeners that offered their condolences, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yes,
so
yeah.
It meant a lot to me.
Absolutely, Doc. We're glad to have you back.
Good to be back. So,
Okay, so where we left off last week, it was
we
one
had
of
just
these.
touched on it too.
It was just an odd story, and President Zelensky said Ukraine would become Big Israel.
right.
All right, and so we scratched the surface, took a look at it, said, okay, this is odd. Okay, so there it is. Jewish telegraphic agency, Zelensky, Ukraine will become more like Big Israel than Europe in the wake of Russia's war. Now, this is the president of Ukraine. He's Jewish,
Right.
and he's being hailed as a hero. They're trying to make him look like Churchill or some great statesman, despite his pornographic, obscene videos online, which have been scrubbed.
Right.
All right, they don't want anybody to see the real Zelensky. But the fact that he said post-war Ukraine will look like Big Israel.
And then no less than the Jewish telegraphic agency putting this article out about it. So,
And then he told us why it would be Big Israel.
So-
There was one quote in that story that said a lot.
So Vladimir Zelensky, Ukraine's Jewish president, said his country would look more like Israel, a democracy on constant military alert, than like their more relaxed European neighbors, given the prospect of long-term tensions with Russia. We will become a big Israel with its own face, Zelensky said Tuesday at a briefing for Ukrainian media, Haaretz reported. We will not be surprised if we have representatives of the armed forces or National Guard in cinemas, supermarkets, and people with weapons I am confident that the question of security will be issue number one for the next 10 years. I'm sure of it.
Okay, so what he said was, if you want to look like Israel, you'll have to be a police state.
Basically, yes. And so, and that's the first, when you first look at the article and first look at the quote, that's the first impression that you get. But he did use that word, big Israel. And of course, that got us digging into some stories from the past and some interesting articles that we came up with. Right. One, the Times of Israel. All right. So this was originally published back in 2014. And it talks about the, Israel acknowledges Jews, in fact, Khazar's secret plan for reverse migration to Ukraine. Now, if you go to that website, even today, it has this warning label on it. This blog post is a work of satire. We talked about this last week, but that warning label was only placed on this website February 28th of this year. So for 8 years, this article existed as general information on the Times of Israel website, and until February 28th of this year, when Russia made its advance into Ukraine, suddenly this became a work of satire overnight. And so they go out of the way to say it was published in 2014 on the eve of Purim, a Jewish holiday that is celebrated with wild merrymaking and raucous comedy, with a particular emphasis on poking fun at anti-Semitism and ignorance. So basically, this is all a big joke, right?
Okay, but the fact is, Ukraine, present-day Ukraine, does exist inside the borders of ancient Khazaria.
Right. And the article here actually goes through that and lays out that information. And so for 8 years, that was reliable, quotable, referenceable information, but until February 28th of this year, it became satire.
That's right. And so why is Khazaria important? Because I think it was it the 8th century?
Yes.
Around the 8th century, the king of Khazaria converted to Judaism.
Right.
And basically issued a decree and told everybody in Khazaria, we're all Jews now.
Right.
And so it became a Jewish nation. A lot of people think that the Ashkenazim in Europe, the Jewish people of Europe, are descendants of the Khazaria Empire. Now, if that is true, then that makes this story even more interesting, because that would mean that they're not Semitic.
Right.
The true Semitic people are Palestinians, anybody in the Middle East that speaks a Semitic language. Semitic is not a race.
Right.
It's a language.
Language group, yeah.
Something like 300 Semitic languages. So the Ashkenazim didn't speak a Semitic language. What they speak now is a reconstructed Hebrew. Hebrew had been lost. The present-day Hebrew language is made up. They had no idea how Hebrew was spoken.
And
so it was
most
reconstructed.
European Jews spoke Yiddish anyway.
Yes, that's right.
Or a mixture, primarily German. German influences there, but most of them spoke Yiddish and everything.
Okay, so what we have here, Doc, is if Khazaria was an ancient nation that voluntarily converted to Judaism in the 8th century, it is now basically modern-day Ukraine.
Right.
The people who went to Palestine in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, and then eventually overthrew the Arabs in Palestine, they were not Middle Eastern Jews who had lived in Palestine all their lives, and their families could trace their history back centuries.
Right.
They were Europeans.
Right. And neither were they Sephardic Jews either. Sephardic Jews are a branch of Judaism that exists primarily in Spain and Portugal, but they can trace their lineage back to the Middle East. They were transplanted from there, but they did not participate in the recolonization. They have no desire for it. And
so most likely they're authentic Jews.
Right. So, but they don't desire to return to Palestine. That's what's unique about them. Now, there are Sephardic Jews in Israel, but primarily they don't seek that out. And so
you have European Ashkenazim people claiming to be Jews, but most likely they are descendants of Khazaria. They migrated to Palestine, overthrew the Arabs, overthrew the Arab Christians, the Arab Muslims, and the Jews who were living in Palestine. This is 1948. They used blood and fighting and warfare to establish this modern Zionist state. And the Middle East has never been calm since.
Right.
And a lot of Jewish people are now starting to think they made a big mistake. That it was a mistake to go into Palestine with weapons and use warfare, revolution, to overthrow the Arab population and establish a Zionist state. They're really starting to doubt the whole narrative of the Zionist movement.
Because right now, as it stands, Israel's what's called Israel there is a nation of, or a state, I got to watch my nomenclature here, of 10 million people, surrounded by 150 million Arabs.
Yes.
Okay, so the odds are against them there. Now, that Times of Israel article I quoted to you a little while ago from 2014, as I said, was updated as satire on February 28th of this year.
Days after the war started.
Right. So basically it said all this information in this article is made up. Okay. However, another publication in Israel, Haaretz, published an article when Ukraine was
the next day.
Yes,
in 2014.
very next day. And it doesn't say anything about satire in it at all to this day. You can go to this site today and it doesn't say it's satire. And it basically has the same information in this article as was on the Times of Israel article. Mm-hmm. The same history, the same information. In fact, it references other publications have recently talked about the Ukrainian connection with Judaism. And so it goes through and basically lays out the entire Khazaria history, as Rick mentioned earlier. So basically, which one is satire, Rick? The Times of Israel article or the Haaretz article? Or are they both true?
They're both true.
Up until February 28th of this year, they were all referenceable articles that you could quote.
There's no debate. Honestly, there's no. This is not a conspiracy theory that Ukraine. It wasn't called Ukraine at the time. It was Khazaria. There's no debate that Khazaria was run by Jews.
Right.
But they were not ethnic Jews. They were Europeans who converted to Judaism.
Right.
Okay. Now this is where this gets really, folks, is going to start getting strange. Okay. And I'll just tell you right now, this is one of those shows and one of those topics. I'm going to give you advance heads up notice. Doc and I are thinking this through as we do this program. This is so fresh to us that what we say today, we may have a different perspective by next week on this. I'm just telling you, because you're watching us unveil this in real time. Okay, so we're learning with you on this. So be patient. I may change my opinion on this a month from now. We may get more information.
Well, so, if we go back to that number 3 still,
right.
Rick, there was something else in that caught our attention and got us talking about it. Right. So it's the second part of that headline of the satirical article that was fact for 8 years. Secret plan for reverse migration to Ukraine. So that is what caught our attention.
And that's what the Times of Israel in February of this year implied. That's satire.
Right.
Don't take this article seriously. There is no secret plan for reverse migration to Ukraine. Okay, this is where it's going to start getting weird. So last week, Doc, while you were back in Missouri, I received an email from a dear supporter of True News in Sweden, Rudy. Thank you, Rudy, for that email, because your email just caused me to go down a rabbit hole I had never considered before. But Rudy said, Rick, I remember an article from 2012 involving Henry Kissinger. So I searched for the article and I found it. 2012, 10 years ago, page 6, this is New York Post, page 6, New York Post. Look at the headline, No More Israel.
Right.
From September 2012, Henry Kissinger says in 10 years, when would that be? 2022.
Right.
There would be no more Israel.
So the actual quote from that article on page 6 in the Times said this: Henry Kissinger, former Secretary of State, current savant of the state of the world. Do not argue with Mr. Kissinger's know-how. He already knows how. Middle East horror. Democratic Party dissing Jerusalem. D.C.'s anti-Israel mentality. Obama busy raising re-election funds, no time for beleaguered Netanyahu. The Oval Office attitude versus the red line. Iran's oath to destroy our only friend in that part of the world. Reported to me, Henry Kissinger has stated, and I quote the statement word for word, in 10 years there will be no more Israel. I repeat, in 10 years there will be no more Israel. And we actually have a screen capture of that actual article. This is Cindy Adams' column in the Times. This is back
New York
Post, September 18th, 2012. And you can actually see right there, that very first paragraph there, talking about what Mr. Kissinger said on that particular day. So,
and right there, it's kind of a gossip column under there. She's talking about Harvey Weinstein
yes,
and stuff.
I saw that. So,
but this is what she wrote for the New York Post, September 2012. She's saying, I was told by a reliable source that Henry Kissinger said, and I quote, in 10 years there will be no more Israel. I repeat, in 10 years there will be no more Israel. Would not Henry Kissinger know if that is satire or real? So, 10 years from 2012 is 2022. Here we are, and we have Mr. Zelensky saying Ukraine will become big Israel.
that's right.
Okay, we're going to take it a little bit deeper. We're going to show you more facts, evidence that there is some type of plan being considered. I'm not saying that this is going to happen. What we're showing you here today is that there are some very important people and very wealthy people who are openly talking about relocating the Zionist state from Palestine to Ukraine. That's what we're going to show you here today.
And they've been talking about it for a while.
Yes.
So going back in time once again, so a lot of things were going on. In 2012. So this is Foreign Policy Journal. Okay, U.S. preparing for a post-Israel Middle East. That's the question that's asked there.
Foreign policy. This is the CFR. I don't know, Doc. Donald Trump converted to Judaism 2 years ago, according to White House official. There it is. That's his blog. He said, President Donald Trump converted to Judaism 2 years ago and joined Chabad Lubavitch Synagogue in New York City, according to a high-level White House official. Mr. Goldberg says the story has allegedly been held by CNN's editors for months, but is due to be released within the next few days. David Elias Goldberg, a fellow at the Jewish Center of Anti-Semitic Study, has also interviewed the White House source. According to the source, Trump was pushed by his daughter Ivanka and son-in-law Jared Kushner to join the faith. At first, Trump resisted, stating it would threaten his base of evangelical Christian voters. However, he had a change of heart and officially converted in early 2017. The ceremony was held in private and closely guarded for nearly 2 years. It appears the White House is prepared to slowly release this information, and by summer, it is expected Trump will fully address his new faith in an evening televised news conference. He is clearly the most pro-Israel president in the history of America. He's given Israel every single thing that they've wanted, and he's about to give them war with Iran.
You okay?
And so has he converted? So I want to show you one more article. This is, let me see if I can.
This is Times of Israel.
Yeah, the Times of Israel. This was published March 22nd, 2019. This is the Times of Israel. Trump, the first Jewish president of the United States.
Now, that's not us saying that. That's Times of Israel. Times of what nation? Israel.
So the people in Israel, that's an English-speaking newspaper in Israel, and that's what they read, that Donald Trump is the first Jewish president of the United States.
And how did they qualify that, Rick?
They gave a list of things that he did for Israel.
First of one, of course, moving the embassy to Jerusalem.
That's right.
That was a big deal.
Then recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. He's the first sitting U.S. president to visit the Western Wall. They gave him credit for defeating ISIS. They gave him credit for rebuking the United Nations for when the UN criticized Israel. They credit him with closing the Palestinian office in Washington, D.C. And they said these things, what is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, these 6 things qualify Donald Trump to be named the first Jewish president of the United States.
And that's what the Times of Israel said.
Again, that was not David Duke's newsletter.
Right.
It's a Jewish-owned newspaper. And they're proclaiming Donald Trump to be the first Jewish president of the United States. So now when you look at this David Elias Goldberg saying that a White House insider told him that President Trump converted to Judaism 2 years ago.
Suddenly it doesn't sound so crazy, does it?
Now it's not too crazy. And that CNN knows about it, and CNN is sitting on the story and will be releasing it at some point.
It was history's darkest hour. Millions of innocent, wonderful, and beautiful lives, men, women, and children, were extinguished as part of a systematic attempt to eliminate the Jewish people. It was the most savage crime against God and his children.
We were so deeply moved to see that picture of you touching the stones of the wall. And may I say, we were deeply moved to see First Lady Melania Trump touching the stone on that wall. And equally moved when we saw your daughter Ivanka and your son-in-law Jared do the same.
Okay, so let's just, what if it's true? What if it's true? What does that say to you, Doc?
That says to me there's been such a major shift in values in America.
People to Israelitic and non-Israelitic according to the book called Jewish Utopia. Now, they are building their own kingdom. It's the Jewish earthly kingdom with headquarters in Jerusalem, where their AI Messiah will be, and they're going to rule the world through the law. You know, it will be international, one law, one religion, basically, Luciferian religion. So yes, in a Talmud, this is the Jewish earthly kingdom, and this is why the Zionist Christianity have embraced Kiliism. They have embraced, or Chileism, I don't know how you would say.
Kiliism, which means 1,000.
1,000.
Where they get the 1,000-year millennial reign.
Exactly, which is a focus on earthly millennial kingdom. And this is how Jews and Christians are getting together, and Christians are so deceived, thinking that they're working for the good thing, for the Jews, like they're helping the Jews. The Jews are supposed to get this kingdom. Yet this is Zoharic doctrine, and it does not have good intention. As I said, that they want to rule the world, they want to get Gentile riches, and they want to rule the Gentiles. They don't consider Gentiles fully human beings. And in fact, as an end game, they have this strange doctrine, Adam Kadmon doctrine, which Adam Kadmon originally was, according to Zohar and Talmud, he was androgynous, You know,
Adam was.
Adam, like he wasn't male, or he was male, female in one body, and this is why you see this transgender agenda today, and there are laws, very serious laws, passing in Alberta, Canada.
Is Zionism behind the transgender movement?
You know, I don't think that, personally, I don't think Zionist Christians are aware of this. They're not aware of many details of what
But
is
is Zionism?
But I think that, yes.
Does the transgender movement get its origin in Zionism?
Yes, it gets its origin in Zionism, and it gets its origin in the Talmud, Zohar, and Kabbalah. It's a Kabbalistic doctrine of Adam Kadmon, which is eventually they have this doctrine called Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. Yes. So how do they want to repair the world? They want to bring it to the original. Who was original Adam? He was androgynous. So now they're putting specific things in food and drink, and they're basically their end game is to make humans that on Earth that will survive whatever it is they're bringing androgynous.
The
transgender agenda.
What they're really trying to do is undo God's creation.
Exactly.